Welcome to Tourism Talk. I'm Laura Oswald, Director of Marketing at the Paducah Visitors Bureau. Today, our episode focuses on Arts and Economic Prosperity 5, Americans for the Arts' newest economic impact study on the nonprofit arts and culture industries and their audiences. Today, we have Randy Cohen, Vice President of Research and Policy with Americans for the Arts, here as our guest. Thanks for joining us, Randy.
Thanks for having me.
You're back in Paducah. You've been here before.
Yep, it's great. I was here about 9 years ago last, and I'm blown away by all the changes and evolution and development and how the arts are helping to define this community and helping to grow this community.
That's absolutely right, and that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. So before we really dive into this research, familiarize our viewers with Americans for the Arts.
Absolutely. Americans for the Arts is a national organization working to connect every American to the arts and to make sure everybody has the opportunity to attend, participate, create personally. We try to make sure every child gets the arts and music in schools and that our arts organizations are funded, get support from their government, get support from their local businesses. And we try to advance the value proposition of the arts and help people understand that I think most people get, the arts improve our quality of life, but the fact is they're good for the economy, they're good for education. When the arts are part of our health care, we're healing faster. So there's a lot that a healthy, vibrant arts community can do for us.
And that value proposition is really where your role comes in with research and policy. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you center your work at Americans for the Arts.
Yeah, well, it's as leading the research and policy area at Americans for the Arts, it's really coming up with the information tools people need to help talk about the arts and expand, how we think about the arts in our lives and in our communities. And I like to really think of it as building healthier communities through the arts. And where the arts are vibrant, our communities are better socially, educationally, economically, and even our communities are better unified. There's last year I did a huge national public opinion survey about the arts. Interviewed 3,020 people across the country. And we found that about 2/3 of the population said the arts unify our communities regardless of age, race, or ethnicity. Similar populations, the arts help me understand other cultures in my community. We live in these fractious times right now, and here the public is saying, we've got a solution. They're putting up the hand and saying, you know what, we know how to connect us better in our community, and the arts and culture are part of that.
Yeah, and that's so powerful. I mean, that value in itself is powerful to connect. But really, then this economic value proposition is a whole other element, and you are very deep into this research right now. Rolling this out, traveling across the country. Arts and Economic Prosperity 5 is the largest study Americans for the Arts has done. What is the scope of this research?
So it's probably the largest economic impact study of nonprofit arts and culture organizations ever conducted. It's huge. And Paducah is one of 341 communities and study regions across the country. We're all in all 50 states. We've studied communities as small as 1,500 people all the way to 4 million. And we're in small rural and large urban and everything in between. And what we're doing is we're really changing the conversation of how we think about the arts from one of charity to one of industry, and again, everybody kind of gets that the arts improve the well-being of our lives. And in fact, that same public opinion survey, 87% of the population says the arts, are good for our community well-being and our personal well-being. But interestingly, 82% said the arts are good for local businesses and good for the local economy. So the American public has really kind of picked up on some of these pragmatic aspects of the arts. And that's what we're trying to do with this study. because we don't really think of the arts as an industry. But think of the last time you went to an arts event. I mean, dinner and a show, or, go hand in hand. This morning we were speaking at the Chamber of Commerce, and I was reminded of a great story. Just date night with my wife just a couple weeks ago. We went to a dance performance. Of course, date night, if you're doing it right, starts a couple weeks before, right?
Plan
So,
ahead.
yeah, exactly. It's not like a last minute, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so, it started a couple weeks in advance where we went on the computer and found the performance we're going to go to. We bought our tickets online and, printed them out and loved the e-commerce. And, date night came. I was informed when I got home from work we'd be dressing up. There was a new necktie waiting for me. So the date hadn't even begun and there was already some retail shopping involved. And then on the way to the performance, we had a nice dinner. We paid $10 for parking. We went to the theater itself and, got our programs, sat in the audience, and one of those beautiful historic theaters with the gorgeous chandeliers and everything. And and so before the performance even began, all these other industries have already been touched. Arts organizations, they employ musicians, right, and artists and curators. But the fact is, they also employ marketers and accountants and auditors and, engineers and computer programmers and, people that do the e-commerce. And so we're trying to capture all of that in this study. And even things like sitting in the auditorium. And I used to run a theater years ago, and I could tell you those beautiful chandeliers hang from the ceilings, not interns changing those light bulbs.
No.
It takes electricians to get up there and do that, right? So all kinds of trades in the community. And so we're trying to demonstrate that yes, everybody gets the well-being and quality of life benefits of the arts, but the fact is, arts organizations are businesses. They employ people locally. They purchase goods and services in the community. And we as attendees have all this event-related spending.
Right.
So what we found in looking just at the nonprofit arts and culture organizations, and so, Market House or the Quilt Museum, we didn't include, the Broadway stages, or we didn't include individual artists or motion picture industry, all a very important part of the cultural ecology, but not focused on this study. And some people ask, what? Why only nonprofits? Well, when the government supports the arts or businesses do arts sponsorships, typically those dollars are going to nonprofit organizations. And it's appropriate to ask the question, well, in addition to quality of life, what's the ROI on that? What's the economic benefit? And so that's what we're capturing. So we surveyed here in Paducah, in the city of Paducah, we surveyed 55 organizations. We heard back from close to half of them. Those organizations all by themselves spend $18.1 million every year. Wow. And that's just the data we collected. We don't make estimates for organizations that don't provide it. Right. So we said, all right, $18.1 million, there's that block of money happening. And then there's an additional $9.4 million in the event-related spending. And that's dinner, right? That's, parking, the necktie, all that kind of stuff. So in Paducah, it's a $27.5 million industry, and that supports 991 jobs here locally and generates $1.7 million in local and state government revenue. It's a whole different way to think about the arts,
huge impact.
Yeah, huge impact. It's a big industry. That's a good news story, and it's just one we're not used to hearing about.
Yeah, and this research really prompts a time for us to look at all of this and focus and celebrate this, which is why you were here with the Chamber Breakfast unveiling this, to celebrate this with the business community and how the arts and a strong arts community, those 55 organizations in our county, our small community, how that powers the greater economy.
Yeah.
I think that is a powerful story.
And it's not an intuitive one. I think if people think about it like, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense, but it's really great sometimes to have the numbers to underscore kind of what you observe. So one of the interesting things is to get at the audience spending piece, because that's really, the big value add here.
Right.
Obviously, arts organizations are businesses, and like all businesses, they have an impact. But few industries generate that event-related spending. And so we did close to 400 interviews right here in Paducah of people at arts events. The typical attendee spends $39.13 per person per event, not including the cost of admission. Wow. So that's a huge amount of economic activity. Then we asked those people, in addition to how much did you spend, for their zip code, because we wanted to see who lives inside the county. So we called those people local.
Right.
And then the people outside the county. 70% of the attendees come from outside the county, and they spend $42.14 per person per event, not including the cost of admission. So it shows when you attract those visitors, they spend money and they go to the local restaurants and they stay at the hotels. A vibrant arts community, good for local merchants.
Yes, and I think that that really touches on why the Visitors Bureau was the sponsor locally of this research, because we are focused on attracting those outside dollars, that visitor spending from outside of the county. We certainly want locals to enjoy the arts and culture we have, and we encourage everyone to check out our website, paducah.travel, and see those events, these attractions, cultural organizations that we can all experience locally. But we want to also empower ourselves and our attractions to bring in that outside dollar.
Yeah, and the tourism research is so interesting. Travelers these days, whether it's international travelers or domestic travelers, are looking for the authentic cultural experience. What is the story of Paducah? Paducah's got a fabulous story, and fabulous downtown, and the beautiful buildings, and the history and the culture, and that's what draws. That's what people want to see and want to experience. And I tell you, I travel to 40 cities a year, and there's and people have heard about Paducah, and they, especially in the arts world, they want to know, what are they doing? Why is there so much creative energy there? And the arts are part of tourism and economic development and the Artist Relocation Project. How are they doing that? What's in the water? And I say, I don't know, but they got 4 rivers of it coming together.
I love that, and I think that totally contributes to the energy here, that creative energy and flow of goods, flow of people, flow of culture into our community.
Yeah.
I think touching a little bit on the audience questionnaires, I think there were some interesting questions asked. Why did you attend this event?
Yeah.
Touch on some of that insight. I think that's really interesting.
So in addition to how much money did you spend related to this arts event, we also asked people, the non-local people, why are you here? You're here on business, you're here visiting friends and family. We gave them options. A full 50% said, of the non-local attendees said, we came specifically for this arts event. And then we asked people who do live in the county, so local folks, what if this arts event wasn't taking place? Would you have stayed home, done something else? 42% said, oh, we traveled to a different community to attend a similar arts event. And so what that tells us is that arts and culture, when we invest in the arts, we're investing in a product. And that product's bringing people to the community, and those people spend money. Not only that, it's keeping our neighbors and their hard-won discretionary dollars right here in town, and again, that's where that arts vibrancy is so good for the local businesses. And you talk to the local restaurateurs, and they say, I don't need to check the weekend section to see if there's a great arts event or exhibition or a quilt show happening. I can see it in my business. It's cheeks and seats.
Yes.
Or as a city manager mentioned to me recently, derrieres and cafe chairs. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I think that is obviously why we're here, talking about that culture that draws people in, locals and visitors. So we're so glad to have this research now unveiled, and would love for you to share a little bit. I mean, we shared some of the stats about Paducah and McCracken County specifically. How does this fit into the national research? Are there any things that really stand out about Paducah's research? What is the national impact?
Yeah, Paducah stood out strongly in a couple of really key areas, and is a community that really is hoping to build on tourism and economic development, the best areas. So 70% of the attendees, so more than half of all attendees, and so, when you go to an arts event, one of those people on either side of you comes from outside the county,
Right.
Maybe both, depending. And that's a much higher average than national. I mean, that's up with the top tourism cities, and so that's a really strong percentage. Nationally, the typical attendee spent $34 per person, and here we have an extra $5 per person being spent on, again, and parking and lodging, that type of thing. So those are really strong numbers, and and that's sort of the economic development game, right? You're trying to create an authentic product to the community and then attract people from outside the community or from the next state over. Or, with something like the Quilt Museum, my mother-in-law is a quilter. And when I was telling her where I'd be traveling here this week, she's reminding her husband, Gene, we got to get out and see that quilt museum. Yeah, so, that's a destination. It's a global destination for people.
It truly is.
So, and I could see it as soon as, I left the airport in Nashville and started driving out here, literally 5-10 minutes out of town. I'm seeing advertisements, I'm seeing mileage markers, for Paducah's arts and cultural organizations. You don't see that in most places, actually. And if you live here, it's what you see all the time. But I will say this, as somebody who sees a lot of communities who doesn't live here, that really stands out in a very big way.
I think this research, coming from the outside and having some numbers that maybe reiterate what we think, what our sentiment might be about the value of the arts. To have this, I think, is something we should really be proud of.
Yeah.
Not only the arts and culture organizations, but just locals in general, to have a community that values what all we do have.
Yeah, I think there is, hopefully there's a lot of community pride. It feels like it. But the Chamber of Commerce, this huge breakfast this morning focused on the arts. And so many of the arts organizations had these fabulous displays. And so there's this wealth of cultural opportunities for people who live in the region. But to have a strong, Convention and Visitors Bureau really valuing the arts, to have a Chamber of Commerce valuing the arts. Again, those are things you just don't see in every community. And so I think it's got a wonderful, wonderful feel here.
Well, and I think talking about the economic development side, cultural opportunities that we do have in our community can differentiate us as a location for relocation or for economic development.
Yeah.
You talked a bit today about the creativity being one of the top skills in the modern workforce. Talk a little bit about that and how that plays in to all of this.
Yeah, sure. So creativity has turned into this huge driver of the new economy. I think everybody gets, innovation, drives economic prosperity and all that type of thing. But creativity drives innovation, and the arts drive creativity. And so it's connecting those dots for people because it's not always intuitive. There's another research study that we do called Creative Industries, Business and Employment in the Arts. And it widens the lens to now we're not looking at just the nonprofit arts organizations, but all the arts businesses in the county. And so nonprofit theaters, museums, arts education, dance organizations, but also for-profit film, architecture, design kinds of organizations and businesses. And right here in the county, there's about 145 of those businesses that employ about 750 people. And once again, it's a list. I use Dun & Bradstreet data as my source on that. So they're the most comprehensive and trusted source for business information in the United States. And And so that's a high percentage of local businesses. That means 3.5% of businesses in the county are arts-centric businesses involved in the creation or the distribution of the arts. And once again, that is always so much higher than people think. I think people just sort of intuitively think, oh, well, the arts are swell and they're sort of over here on the mantle. But in fact, it's a core industry. And we take, again, very conservative approaches. So it's only arts businesses. There's no computer programmers or medical researchers, which are both very creative,
right,
but not focused on the arts. Tell a funny story. I was presenting these data to some economists a year or two back, and one of them raised a hand and asked me, did you include morticians? And I thought, no, but bring it. Maybe I'm missing something. And he said, well, aren't morticians involved literally in the presentation of the body and using lighting and makeup and costuming? And he never looked as good alive as he does now. So no, there's no morticians in it. Again, just arts-centric businesses.
Right, but I mean, that shows that creativity does exude into every business.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's another organization out there called the Conference Board, and it's who big business goes to for information. And they give you the leading index of economic indicators, consumer confidence index. And it's where business scholars, are. And their research shows that creativity is now among the top 5 applied skills that business leaders are looking for. 72%, so just about 3 in 4 business leaders are looking for creativity in their candidates. And we asked them, well, how do you know if you got somebody creative on the line? There's no typing test for creativity. Starting your own business and study of the arts, biggest indicators of creativity. And so it's just one more way, that connects the arts to creativity. And so many young, workers in the new economy, these are who we're trying to attract, right? I mean, I go to cities where literally people will tell me our #1 export is young, educated people. And they're like looking at their economy just spinning down the drain because if you have these, workers, that's where the businesses follow these days. It's much less about bricks and mortar now, and it's a knowledge economy. And if that's where the workers are, that's where the businesses go. And these workers are really clear. They're saying, look, you want us to be creative in the workplace. Well, we're creative people. We want to be creative in our lives as well. And so that's one more benefit that we're getting here in Paducah because we've got, this creative, culturally vibrant community. There's opportunities to attend things, to create personally, the college, it's got, workforce and arts training and job readiness type of, art skills. So I think there's so much happening here and still a lot of untapped headroom.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that hopefully today our talk has connected some of those dots for people. Maybe we can look at the arts and creativity even more of an impact on our community than we previously thought.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, and talking about the opportunities for cultural engagement, you have the study Americans Speak Out About the Arts.
Yeah.
And I heard you speak about this at a conference in Austin and was very struck by some of the takeaways. Tell just a few of the high-level takeaways with that research.
Well, I think one of them I was mentioning is, which I just think is the most important piece, is just those community well-being benefits of the arts. And 2/3 of the population says, look, the arts help elevate me beyond everyday challenges. And so they're providing personal well-being, and they believe that those benefits extend more broadly to the community. Yes. And that's where we see 2/3 of the population saying the arts unify our communities regardless of age, race, or ethnicity. Help me understand other cultures. So I think those are wonderful benefits. 87% of the population said arts provide well-being benefits to the community. 82% said they also provide these economic benefits. So the public is sort of understanding a lot of these pragmatic aspects. There's interesting information in there for the arts community also. So you're always doing these public opinion surveys. In the last year, did you attend, a museum, a theater, a dance? You go down the list, a zoo, a botanical garden, that type of thing. And 68% of the population says yes, and that happens a lot. It's a pretty typical kind of number. But there's a lot of ways people are engaging in the arts now and engaging differently and through technology and in non-arts settings. So I also asked, hey, in the last year, have you had an arts experience at an airport, in a hospital, at a school or public art in the the built environment? An even larger percentage, 77% of the population said, oh yeah, I've had one of these kinds of experiences. And I'll just give you an example. So in Washington, D.C., 3 years ago, the Washington National Opera went out of business, and ticket sales down, revenues down. Placido Domingo is its artistic director. Just couldn't make a go of it anymore. So you could say, well, I guess Washingtonians must not like opera anymore, perhaps. Well, every summer in our baseball stadium, we do what's called Opera in the Outfield. And they do a live simulcast on the big screen of an opera. And you can sit on the grass and picnic, you can sit in the stands, or the concessions are open. Really, wouldn't you sort of have a drink and a chili dog while you watch the opera sometimes? Anywhere from 10 to 20,000 people show up to that. So the problem's, not the art forms, it's just the delivery mechanisms are changing. We engage in the arts through technology so much more. Personal creation, is up. Going back to the quilters,
Right.
21 million quilters in this country. 36 million people sing in a choir in this country. So lots of folks being personally involved, which I thought was pretty fabulous.
Yeah, that is wonderful. And I hope that it will inspire our local viewers to take advantage of all of the culture and creativity in our UNESCO Creative City.
Yeah.
Having that global designation really recognizes that energy, the opportunities, and the connectedness and presentation of all of these art forms that we can really be a part of and center our own creative expression.
Yeah. That's a great plum for the community to get that UNESCO Creative Cities designation, actually be hosting that meeting here in September of this year. And for folks that don't realize that this is the first time this global meeting has taken place in the United States.
Huge
We're not even talking about just the first time in Kentucky, first time on the continent.
Right.
So yeah, it's a great opportunity to show off all the great cultural assets here. And I think it's a tribute to just the great arts and culture in the community. But it's not just the artists, it's the fact that there's so much community engagement and support, and that the arts are so well networked through, businesses and through the schools. There's a lot to be proud of there. I hope people are feeling that or become proud of it as they understand more.
Yes, I hope so too. And I thank you for being here today and sharing the insights that you have through arts and economic prosperity. And I hope that our viewers will look more into Americans for the Arts online and to our website, Paducah.travel, to learn more about the UNESCO Creative Cities designation and this Americans for the Arts research that truly is something for us to be proud of as a creative city.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you. Thanks
We
for
look
having
forward
me.
to having you in Paducah again.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all for joining us today. We'll look forward to seeing you next time on Tourism Talk.
1, 2, 1, 2, go. Hello, ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Hello, ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da.